I have seen this trend on Christian TikTok of different women dating God. That is to say, they're basically just focusing on themselves and trying to get themselves prepared and ready, not only to be just a better Christian, but to be a wife eventually for a man that God will. And I totally think that that's a great idea. I think there are seasons where we are to be in a season of preparation, really do a lot of introspection, really ask God to cleanse us mentally, spiritually, physically, if needed, in whatever way possible, so that we can actually be prepared for our husbands. But I think also really important aspect of that is to also ask God to purify our expectations because I'll hear women talk about they want a man of God, and then sometimes they'll come with these really worldly expectations, still wanting him to be a particular height, still wanting him to make a particular amount of money, still needing him to be in a particular field. And sometimes those are the very expectations that God is wanting us to get rid of. Because if you think about it, look, Jesus himself, he was a carpenter. He would have been considered a dusty by some ladies. He would have been considered a blue collar worker, which some ladies today with college degrees will say is not on their level. And I think, especially if you wanted to purify yourself and be open to the man that God has for you, that might mean that you need to put down some of those expectations, especially if they don't really mean anything in the long run. Because if what really matters is you being with a man who has a shared interest of God and you guys building your relationship and your marriage off of that shared faith and those values, then what does it matter if he has 15 college degrees or if he's, a truck driver, but he's a hard worker and he's honest and he loves God and he loves family and he's family oriented? Like, that's where you really want to get to the values of what matters most. And so sometimes that season of dating God also means that we have to ask God to purify our desires and make sure that we are picking based upon what God values and not necessarily based upon what the world or we see, women valuing in in mainstream culture. Because don't get it twisted. Status, prestige, that all matters. That matters to a lot of women. And look, I even have to ask God to this day to help me to try to keep a humble heart. But again, those are the kinds of honest conversations that I think God wants us to have, not only with ourselves, with Him. And be honest with ourselves about how we're picking and choosing and making sure that it is ultimately done based upon the values that God Himself desires, and that we are not devaluing people or we are not devaluing men because they don't become in a particular package that we want or because they may not have it as a job that we feel like is just as prestigious. No, we want to make sure that we are picking based upon the right qualities because like I said, the Messiah himself was a carpenter and you can't get anybody more godly than that. So that's what I'm saying.